The wind carried the scent of dust and sagebrush across the dry plains as Cole Hartley rode toward the last property on his ledger. His boots were caked in trail dust, his jaw set in that same unyielding line that made ranch hands step aside when he passed. He wasn't just any rancher, he was the rancher, the man whose name made debtors squirm and banks nod. Cole had inherited his father's empire, built on cattle, hard work, and one iron rule: never let a debt go unpaid. He stopped in front of a weathered farmhouse barely holding itself together. The fence leaned sideways, chickens scattered across the dirt yard, and the roof showed more sky than shingles. The name on the faded sign by the gate read, Marston, a name that meant little, except that it owed him $200 and 6 months of overdue interest. Cole dismounted, the creak of his saddle echoing in the silence. He knocked on the door, expecting a grizzled farmer with excuses ready. Instead, the door opened to reveal a woman, young, maybe late 20s, her dark hair tied back with a scrap of cloth. Her face was pale with exhaustion, her eyes a mix of fear and quiet defiance. "Can I help you, sir?" she asked, voice soft but steady. "I'm Cole Hartley. I own the Hartley Ranch," he said, removing his hat out of habit more than courtesy. "Your late husband owed me money. I'm here to settle it." At the mention of her husband, her face flickered with something, pain, maybe. She stepped aside slightly, gesturing him in, though the hesitation in her body language made it clear she wished she didn't have to. Inside, the house smelled faintly of stew and smoke. There were 5 children, 3 boys and 2 girls, huddled around a small table, eating bread that looked as dry as the land outside. The youngest, a baby, was in her arms. She shifted the child as she sat, the motion revealing that she was nursing. Cole froze. The sight hit him harder than he expected. This wasn't a house of laziness or neglect, it was a house barely holding itself together. "My husband, William," she began quietly, "passed last winter. Fever took him before the snow thawed. I've been trying to make payments, but the crops failed, and the ox died in spring. I just need time." Cole's eyes swept the room, the cracked walls, the patched floor, the tiny shoes lined up by the hearth. He'd seen plenty of hardship in his time, but something about this woman trying to hold together a family with nothing but grit, didn't sit right. "You got a name, ma'am?" he asked. "Ellen," she said. "Ellen Marston." He nodded, glancing at the ledger in his hand. Her debt was clear, signed and sealed. But so was the look in her eyes, a look that wasn't asking for pity, only a chance. "Mrs. Marston," he said slowly, "you know I can't just wipe this away. Business doesn't run on mercy." "I understand," she said quietly, pressing the baby closer. "But I can work. I can sew, clean, or cook. Anything, if you'll just give me time. I don't want charity, just a chance to pay what's owed." Her words struck something deep in him. He had spent years watching men gamble, drink, and lie their way out of debt. Yet here was a widow offering honest labor for survival. He studied her for a long moment before speaking. "The Hartley Ranch could use a cook. My hands don't eat well, and my housekeeper left last month. It'd be hard work, but it'd pay steady." Ellen looked up, eyes widening. "You'd hire me. With the children." He hesitated. 5 kids on a ranch isn't easy. "They'll work too," she said quickly. "The older boys can help in the stables. The girls will mind the baby. Please, Mr. Hartley. I'll pay back every cent." Cole sighed. He should have said no. He should have done what a businessman would, sell the property, recover his losses, and ride off. But there was something about Ellen that silenced every practical thought. Maybe it was the way her voice trembled when she said please, or maybe it was the baby's small hand gripping her sleeve. "All right," he said finally. "Pack what you need. We'll leave at first light." The next morning, the wagon rumbled down the road toward Hartley Ranch. Ellen sat beside him, the baby wrapped in a shawl, the other children in the back, clutching their few belongings. Life on the ranch wasn't easy, but Ellen proved herself faster than anyone expected. She cooked 3 meals a day, kept the kitchen spotless, and even learned to mend harnesses. Her boys mucked stalls and fetched water, her daughters helped in the kitchen. Within weeks, the ranch felt different. The silence that used to hang over Cole's big house was replaced by laughter, tiny footsteps, and the smell of bread baking in the oven. But it wasn't just the ranch that changed. Cole did too. He found himself lingering in the kitchen more than necessary, watching her move, sleeves rolled, hair loose around her face. She never complained, never asked for help, never looked for sympathy. Yet when she smiled, even briefly, it warmed something in him that had been cold for years. One night, a storm rolled in, violent and loud, shaking the windows. Cole heard crying from the children's room and went to check. He found Ellen there, holding two of the youngest close while lightning flashed through the cracks in the shutters. Her voice was soft, humming a lullaby. He stood quietly, watching her, the flicker of lamplight casting gold across her tired face. For a moment, he forgot why he'd come. Forgot the debt, the ranch, the rules. All he saw was a woman who had lost everything yet still managed to make others feel safe. When she noticed him, she smiled faintly. "They're scared of the thunder," she whispered. "So was I," he said softly. "When I was their age." Her eyes met his, and something unspoken passed between them. Weeks turned into months. The debt remained, but it stopped feeling like one. Ellen worked harder than any man on the ranch. The hands respected her, the children adored her, and Cole, he couldn't deny it anymore. He looked forward to seeing her each morning, hearing her laughter in the yard, watching her face light up when her kids ran to her after chores. Then one evening, she came to him, hands trembling. "Mr. Hartley, I've been keeping account of what I owe. I think by next month, I'll have worked enough to repay the full amount." He stared at her, the words hitting him like a blow. He had come to collect a debt, and somehow, she had repaid him in ways money never could. "Mrs. Marston," he said quietly, "you've already paid it back." She blinked. "I don't understand." He set his ledger aside and took a slow step forward. "You gave this place life again. You gave me life again. That's worth more than any number in a book." Her eyes shimmered, and for the first time, the walls she kept around her heart began to fall. "But I don't want to take advantage." "You're not," he interrupted gently. "Stay here, Ellen. Not for debt. Not for work. Stay because this is home now, for you and the children." For a long moment, neither spoke. Then one of the children ran in, laughing, calling for Mr. Hartley. Cole smiled, kneeling to lift the boy up, his heart swelling in a way it hadn't in years. Ellen watched him, a soft smile curving her lips. The man who once came to collect what was owed had instead given more than he ever thought he could: shelter, kindness, and something he hadn't felt since before his own losses. And as dusk fell across the ranch, the sound of laughter rose again from that once silent house, a sound that told him he'd found something worth more than gold or cattle. Something that couldn't be written in any ledger. Winter crept slowly over the plains that year, frost edging the fences, the breath of the horses misting in the cold dawn air. Cole had always faced the season with nothing but work and whiskey for company. But that year, everything was different. The ranch didn't feel empty anymore. There was the sound of wood crackling in the hearth, the smell of stew simmering on the stove, and the laughter of children echoing from the barn. Ellen's presence changed the rhythm of everything. She rose before sunrise, her shawl wrapped tightly around her shoulders, tending to the fire before waking the little ones. Cole would see her from his window, walking through the thin snow, leaving small footprints as she went to gather kindling. Her boys followed her, heads bowed against the wind, proud to be helping their mother. He found excuses to pass by the kitchen every morning. Sometimes to ask about the day's meals, sometimes to check the supplies, but really just to hear her voice. She'd smile at him in that gentle way that made his chest ache. It wasn't flirtation, it was something quieter, deeper. A kind of respect, a kind of peace. The ranch hands noticed too. "Boss's got himself a reason to shave these days," one of them joked, earning a glare from Cole. But he didn't deny it. It had been years since he cared what anyone thought. Ellen never treated him like the wealthy rancher everyone else saw. To her, he was just Mr. Hartley, the man who gave her family a chance. She worked beside his men without complaint, her hands red from scrubbing, her back sore from long days. And yet, every night, she still managed to smile as she tucked her children into bed. One evening, the youngest, Sarah, toddled up to Cole as he came in from the barn. She couldn't have been more than 4, her curls wild and her eyes bright. She tugged at his pant leg and asked in that innocent voice, "Mr. Hartley, are you gonna stay for supper?" He chuckled, lifting her up. "Depends what your mama's cooking." "Biscuits," she said proudly. "Mama makes the best ones. She says it's 'cause she stirs 'em with love." Ellen blushed when he walked into the kitchen, still holding Sarah. I hope she didn't repeat too much, she said, half smiling. Only that your biscuits are famous, he teased. They're just biscuits, she said, brushing a stray hair from her face. They're more than that, he said softly, and she looked at him with something she quickly hid behind her lashes. Dinner that night was simple: stew, biscuits, and laughter. The boys told stories about the horses, the girls giggled over nothing at all, and Cole found himself sitting at that worn wooden table longer than he ever had. When the children were finally asleep, he lingered, helping her gather dishes. You don't have to do that, she murmured, glancing at him as he rolled up his sleeves. I don't mind, he said. Been a long time since I shared a table like that. She paused, her hands still in the soapy water. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you feel. He shook his head. Don't be sorry. You've done more for this house than you know. The room was quiet except for the crackle of the fire and the wind outside. She looked at him for a long moment, her eyes soft but filled with something unspoken, gratitude, maybe, or something she was afraid to name. As the weeks passed, the bond between them deepened in small ways. He'd leave a bag of sugar or coffee on the counter without mentioning it. She'd mend his shirts when they tore, leaving them folded neatly on his chair. He started teaching her boys how to ride, how to handle the cattle, how to use a rope. They looked up to him with the kind of respect a father earns, not demands. One day, while fixing a fence, Cole found the eldest boy, Jacob, struggling with a post. You're fighting it wrong, Cole said, taking the tool from him. You gotta work with the land, not against it. Jacob frowned, wiping sweat from his brow. Mama says that too. Cole smiled faintly. She's a smart woman. Jacob looked up at him, serious. You make her smile more than she used to. Cole froze, caught off guard. The boy wasn't teasing, he was simply stating a fact. She deserves to smile, he said quietly. More than anyone I know. That night, he couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about how fragile her life had been when he found her, how easily she could have been crushed by the weight of it all. Yet she had stood tall, fought through hunger and grief, and somehow brought warmth back to his cold house. He realized then that he didn't want her debt repaid. He didn't want her to leave. He wanted her there, always. But saying it felt impossible. He wasn't the kind of man who spoke about feelings. The land had hardened him, taught him that love was a weakness. And yet, when he saw Ellen laugh with her children or hum softly while kneading dough, all that hardness melted like snow under the sun. Spring came, and with it, life returned to the ranch. The cattle grazed fat on green fields, wildflowers bloomed along the fences, and the children ran barefoot through the grass. Ellen's hair caught the light as she worked in the garden, and every time Cole passed by, he felt that quiet ache again, the one that reminded him how much he'd come to care. Then one evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the fields gold, she came to him by the corral. Her hands were clasped, her face pale but determined. I've been meaning to tell you something, she began. I've saved enough now. Between the wages and what I've sold from the garden, I can pay back the last of what's owed. He looked at her, silent. I don't want you to think I've taken advantage, she went on quickly. You've been more generous than I deserve, and I'm grateful, truly. But I need to do this, to stand on my own again. He took off his hat, turning it in his hands. Ellen, when I came to your door that day, I thought I was collecting a debt. The truth is, I was the one in debt. You gave me something I didn't even know I was missing. She frowned softly. What do you mean? He met her gaze, steady and honest. You gave me a reason to come home again. A reason to wake up and hear laughter in these halls. You paid your debt the day you brought your family here. Her eyes glistened, her breath catching. Mr. Hartley. Cole, he said quietly. It's just Cole now. For a long moment, neither moved. The air between them was thick with everything they hadn't said. Then one of the children called from the porch, breaking the spell. She smiled faintly, wiping her eyes, and turned to go. Ellen, he said softly. She stopped, glancing back. He stepped closer, the fading sunlight catching the lines on his face. You and the children, you belong here. I don't ever want to see this place without you in it. Her lips trembled. Are you sure? He nodded. I've never been surer of anything. The wind carried her answer, soft and trembling but certain. That night, as the stars stretched endless above the plains, the once lonely rancher sat by the fire surrounded by the only family he'd ever truly wanted. The laughter, the warmth, the gentle hum of Ellen's voice filled the house again, and for the first time in years, Cole Hartley felt whole.